Hello and welcome back to Warcraft Daily for today, the 9th of April 2014. So in today's news, we just have a few things. Basically, there's a little bit of a mini controversy with some leaked Warlords data, so I've got to cover that. Then the dungeon limit's been increased, some Diablo 3 sales, and then finally I'm going to round it off with a whole bunch of, well, very relevant tweets about Warlords of Draenor. But first of all, mmo-champion. So you probably noticed that they had a whole bunch of screenshots up on their site yesterday. They basically were, it was kind of like screenshots of these zones that weren't particularly well finished. Now you're probably wondering, how did they get that? Well, what they actually did was they simulated a private server. Well, they basically just ran it on their own private server. It's called sandboxing the game. There's no NPCs. Half the just like objects in the world and things like that weren't really spawned correctly. And yeah, that's basically what was up with that. The problem is, though, that it didn't really show Warlords in a very good light. I mean, come on, if people... Well, I'm sure that there are some people who basically saw that and thought, wow, this is looking terrible, because, you know, people on the internet are kind of dumb, they don't get what alpha means. And that, yeah, that didn't particularly make Blizzard too happy, so Blizzard requested that they take all that information down. Now this goes to, like, this applies to basically anyone who has got Warlords of Draenor footage around on their channels, or Twitch streamers. Basically, if you stream Warlords sandbox mode on Twitch, you'll get banned from Twitch. So a whole bunch of things like that have happened. And it's definitely interesting. Basically, Blizzard are okay with people data mining, but what they're not okay with is breaking the terms by doing a private server and then showing that information to people. So that's definitely kind of interesting. Now, there are one or two things which I really do need to clear up, though, because it could lead to some misconceptions amongst people. So first of all, there was a leaked Dota-style map. This was actually just a test, it didn't pan out, and Halinka confirmed via Twitter that it will not be in Warlords of Draenor. Plus, like, just looking at it, it was ultra sketchy, and, like, nah, it ain't gonna be there. And then also there was a leaked Night Elf female model. This is actually, according to Chris Robertson, very old, and it has since been scrapped and remade. So I think, like, it is a pity for Blizzard. A lot of people jumped to conclusions based on information that wasn't really true. It doesn't look that good for them, and yeah, all that stuff has been removed now. I actually did have a video that was up on the channel for 30 minutes, I think, and before I ended up making it private and then later on deleting it. I actually did that before. Well, what happened yesterday basically is mmo-champion started having a whole bunch of weird downtime. It looked like they were being DDoSed, and then later that evening they took it all down. So once the weird activity happened at mmo-champion, I just kind of thought, something sketchy here, and then I removed all the videos with those particular screenshots. So yeah, that's essentially the lowdown. Of course, the same's happened to other websites, say like Warcraft. They've had all of theirs removed, and there was definitely some information we found out, though, about, like, not Netherstorm, the Blasted Lands. I'll probably talk about it in a future video, though, once I can actually get some good, legit, official screenshots that I can use, because there's no point looking at crap, because at the end of the day, do you really want to see that? Do you want to see the half-baked version? I don't particularly think so. So there's that. Alright, so let's move on to the next bit of news. This is really cool if you are into farming your mounts. They have changed the dungeon limit so that it is now 10 dungeons per hour. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can do 10 dungeons an hour now. That's a limit that you probably will only hit if you're doing an ultra-fast dungeon run, but if you're farming for, say, the Drake of the North Wind or the Stone Drake from Vortex Pinnacle and Stonecore, this basically means you can constantly farm it all the time until you hit that 10 dungeons an hour limit. This really is fantastic for people who just want to sit down and get a feckin' mount. It might take you 10 hours, but at least you won't have to deal with the dungeon limit as much anymore. So that's definitely a nice thing. I'm not particularly sure if there's any reason why they laxed it, though of course that knock-on effect on mount farmers is definitely a very good thing. So yes, overall some nice stuff. Let's just move on to a quick little bit of Diablo 3 information, just because they release sales and people love numbers. In its first week, the expansion Reaper sold over 2.7 million copies, which is pretty impressive, actually. Original Diablo 3, I think it was 9 million in the first week. So to get a third of their, like, install base upgrading within a week is insane. That's kind of mind-blowing to me. I didn't think it would be that good. And I think it's just indicative of the overall increase in quality that Reaper of Souls has. I'm still not 100% sure if it's enough content for the money in some regards, but overall, though, I've had a great time with it. It's just that past, kind of farming on my my adventure modes and Nephilim Rifts. I'm not too sure if there'll be a great deal else there, but perhaps with ladders coming in the future, then that will add a little bit of competitive play that I might find to be interesting. So that happened anyway. Lots of sales. Blizzard made a good old chunk of change there, but overall, Diablo 3 is in a much better place than it was a good few months ago. Then they've also released a patch. Now, there's one or two problems if you're a Crusader. Just check the Diablo forums because they posted a PSA about like one of your abilities actually damaging you instead of healing you. So if you're in hardcore, that could cause you problems. Do check that. But in general, the patch has essentially buffed most classes from what I can see. Especially the Crusader. The Crusader has been buffed quite heavily. I think they take 20% less damage now, which should make them a lot more viable. They were pretty weak though. When it came to the end game, so that definitely does make a good deal of sense. Anyway, with that Diablo 3 news covered, let's move on to some Warlords of Draenor related tweets. First of all, there's a tweet from Watcher, Ian Hazakosis, who said that there will be no stepping nerfs to Siege of Orgrimmar because it already has a really good difficulty curve, and things like item upgrades are actually helping people out quite a bit. It's interesting though, item upgrades are being removed, and I think that one of the reasons for that is because it kind of messes up balancing in a way, because let's just say, hypothetically, you're designing encounters for item level 550 being the normal mode eye level drop, but then because of upgrades, everyone's actually 556. It kind of messes up your balance there because people are always going to upgrade those normal pieces. They're not going to buy anything else with them because, you know, there's no equivalent of the Shadowpan Assault gear. So because of that, people are already like slowly nerfing the boss. It's the same as the ICC stepping up nerf, perhaps not as large, but those item upgrades definitely do have the same effect when you actually just think about it. It was interesting, different perspective, and fair enough, actually. And I do agree with them removing the item level upgrades because there was no decision there was no gameplay. It was just, here's another thing you have to do. And I think they could definitely roll some more interesting methods of, even if they wanted to still have an item upgrade system, maybe it could be some sort of special drop or something a little bit more interesting than just, you know, Valor per week. I think they can do more in terms of designing that to be really interesting. Not specifically sure what they could do, but hopefully something. Yeah, it'll be nice. Anyway, so next, Watcher again said that Ner'zhul is... well, he is killed, actually. I think he's killed off. All I know is he's the final boss of one of the 5-player dungeons in Warlords. That's not new information. We've known that for quite a long time, actually. But the reasoning behind this is a little bit more interesting, because a lot of people were saying, hey, Ner'zhul's a massive lore character. Why are you killing him off so quickly? Well, what Watcher said is that Ner'zhul was a major character, yes, but in the old Outlands timeline. Because back then, he is the guy who was responsible for just kind of starting off the dialogue with Kil'jaeden. That may not be the case now. The lore is going to pan out differently, so he's not going to be as important, which of course means that other orcs are going to take prominence. Maybe people like Kargath Bladefist will end up being more important than Ner'zhul, or, you know, whatever. I think that if Blizzard had to constrain themselves to the Warcraft 1 characterizations, or Warcraft 2 even, characterizations of these characters, then it perhaps wouldn't be that great. So I think that's probably the right decision. It's a little bit sad that Ner'zhul dies in a 5-player dungeon, but I think it's fair enough. It's an alternate timeline, and they shouldn't have to compromise the story they want to tell by sticking to 20-year-old lore. Especially because 20 years ago, look, Blizzard were... like, they were pretty young when it came to doing a story. Let's be very honest about that. So anyway, that's kind of cool. Then moving on, we have yet another tweet from Watcher, who said that the random Time Walker dungeon string has actually been there since patch 5.4. They're still working on it and will not be there for patch 6.0. If you are not aware, one of the data mine strings from the Warlords of Draenor Alpha client talked about queuing for a random Time Walker dungeon. That's just there for testing. It's not going to be in patch 6.0, but of course, I really do want Time Walker dungeons to be an element of the game because I think it's really cool. If you're not aware of what Time Walker dungeon are, what they are, by the way, it's just going back into an old dungeon or raid and then having either you scaled down to its level or it scaled up to your level. I'm pretty sure the current implementation that they had was you being scaled down. I think that's really cool. And if you just search the channel for scaling raids or something like that, then you'll see a previous discussion video that I did on it. It's about 20-something minutes, maybe 25, so that might be of interest to you. Okay, and then finally we have a tweet from Celestial, who said that they are strongly considering adding more class quests in a future patch, but not in patch 6.0. I think that's okay. I think that, like, just going out of the gate with the expansion should be making sure that the great content is there for absolutely everybody. But maybe in patch 6.1, 2, 3, or 4, they should start adding in class quests. In terms of what ones I think would be nice, well, let's just see. A Shaman one, of course, would make a lot of sense. Warlocks have already had one. Personally, I'd like a Hunter one, because I'm a Hunter, and that would be very cool. Plus, with Draenor being, full of savage beasts and things like that, I think it would actually sort of fit the challenge of extreme hunting quite well. Moving on to other classes, I'm not too sure, really. I guess a Druid class quest would fit better in, like, an expansion, which wasn't maybe the Emerald Dream expansion, but at least had some Emerald Dream elements to it. So that's what I'd say for Druids. For Warriors, I guess anything to do with Orcs is a pretty decent time because, they have their swords and things. But really a Warrior class quest is something they can do whenever they want. Death Knight class quest. I mean, you kind of missed the gate in that one. It's not really Wrath of the Lich King at the minute. But I suppose if Bolvar ever comes back, then that could involve a Death Knight class quest. As for Paladins, once again, it could fit anywhere. The same goes for Priests. Maybe Priest could do one now, actually, with Velen and the Draenei of Draenor being all, priests and that kind of thing. But anyway, I'm not going to cover all the classes, I just think that's kind of interesting. So anyway, yes, that's basically it for the news. I'm just going to ramble on for 1 or 2 minutes, though, about Warlords in general. So, in terms of alpha access, I don't have it at the minute. In fact, nobody has it. If anyone says they have it, they are. They're actually using the Sandbox client, which is the one thing that Blizzard does not like you doing. So no one's in the Warlords of Draenor Alpha yet. I don't know when they're officially going to open up access. A lot of the YouTubers that I've, seen are thinking it's in and around this week, maybe next week at the latest. With all this data mine stuff, though, I think they probably want to get the actual alpha out there so that media people can start showing off, the parts of the game that Blizzard feel are ready. Because I'm assuming the sort of stuff that mmo-champion got slapped at for showing, like, that's not going to be in the full-on alpha once we actually move into it. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, really, the sooner it comes, the better. Right now, we've got a lot of data mine stuff, but I'm not particularly sure if there's much else there, really. We don't have models for the new weapons, or no, the new weapons, sorry, the new armor or anything like that. But we do have models for the new green weapons, still waiting the raid ones. But yeah, maybe they'll data mine more stuff, but I'm not particularly sure how the YouTube, like the schedule of the channel is going to go, really. It's all very up in the air, and it just depends on the timing of things, honestly, because it's a very odd period, really. It's kind of bizarre for, real life stuff as well, because I basically need to stay around the house, and not around the house, but I need to stay about and be ready to just drop whatever I'm doing at any moment to get going. Which is fair enough, though. I'm actually really enjoying this period of time. It's nice that there's a lot of, like, stuff going on. It's a great break from the last few weeks. So, yeah, that's probably it, really, for today's video. Anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. And, yeah, I'll see you next time.